How's it going? Hope you're doing well and having a nice day. I thought I'd do another update video on my O-gauge train layout here. As you can see from my last update, I've made quite a bit of progress. As previously mentioned, this layout measures 4 feet by 6 feet, and it doesn't have proper benchwork as it sits upon 3 2x4 folding tables. And as I mentioned before, that is just the way I started out with model trains when I was younger. I am now old enough and capable enough to build my own benchwork, but since I already had the tables, I've just expanded over the years and bought more tables instead of building regular benchwork. So that's just the route I've taken. Plus, it's good because it makes the layout a lot more portable. I can keep it as one table, and if I want to move it somewhere, I can just scoop the legs up and I can transport it anywhere. So that's nice about it. Anyways, so again, if you watched my last update, you'll notice that I've done quite a bit. The main thing is I've painted my foam board base, and yes, my base for the layout above the table is foam board, as you can see. And it looks a bit crappy right now. It's all scratched up and pitted with little pinholes, but that's because I've reused most of it from the previous iteration of my layout. So there is marks and holes in it from where things were before. All these little holes are actually where my old cornfield used to be on the old layout. But once there's roads and buildings and ground cover, you won't see any of that. Speaking of which, as you can see, I've been tracing out where all of my roads and sidewalks and buildings are going to go. As I mentioned in my last update, the sort of central feature in the middle of the table is going to be a street running sort of main street scene right here down the middle in this little reversing loop branch line I have going through the middle. So that's going to be kind of the focal central point of the layout, and then the road is going to wrap around and connect to this crossing, and there's just going to be downtown buildings on either side of the road and some parking spots here. The only building I have right now is my Marks Gerard whistling station, and I will also have a gas station right here. As you can see, I've sketched that out. And over here, I think I'm gonna put the cornfield that was on my old version of the layout. I'll do a little farm area in this corner. And on the topic of scenery, I should mention the style that I'm going for with this layout. I'm kind of going for sort of a half high rail or realistic scenery and half post-war design. Of course, I'm using 027 tubular track, as you can see, although the curves on the main line are not 027 radius. As I mentioned in my last update video, these are the Marks 027 wide radius curves, which actually have an 034 curve, which allows me to run bigger things like that with the 027 track. It just can't go you know, through the yard or that or anything. But anyways, so yeah, tubular track, post-war accessories. Well, actually those are MPC era, but you know, they're still from the post-war. They're re-updated post-war designs. So I've got some things post-war / MPC combined with the realistic scenery with your ground cover, your bushes, figures, and all that. And even some modern era accessories as well. So yeah, that's the style for this layout. Kinda half and half high rail and post-war. But back to the layout. I pretty much covered this side. And I've drawn out what I'm going to be doing in the future. Over on this side, I've got my yard, or not much of a yard, but I've got 2 tracks and 2 operating accessories. As you can see, one, a 152 icing station, again the MPC version, and on this track I have the milk car, and I have the MPC era Borden milk car with its corresponding platform. So that's my yard with its operating accessories. I've got some bumpers out back. And lastly, the most prominent thing, even though I've saved it for last, is the independent elevated line, which comes out of this platform in the corner and goes out and over the yard. This part back here in the corner is an elevated platform made of some thin plywood with some posts, and that goes over the main line, and that will be covered in, and it will be a mountain. The main line will go through a tunnel under the mountain, and then the upper track will come out over the mountain, over the yard, on trestles. And these trestles are interesting because, as you can see, they are regular Lionel number 111 trestles. I have the box right here. Yes, I'm continuing the MPC trend here. But yeah, an elevated trestle set. But as you can see, I've done some work to them. The main being that they're a lot taller than the stock form. And that's because I've added some risers under each leg. And these are actually 3D printed. I've been fortunate to have recently acquired a 3D printer. And this is one of the first pieces that I have designed to give these trestles more height to clear some taller cars. I think literally a autoloader car would have cleared the ties by mere millimeters, and it probably would have been worse with the tunnel. With having the portal, it probably would have been even lower. So I wanted to have a higher tunnel, so that's how I essentially shimmed up the height of these trestles. And this is one of the pieces that I printed, although it's just a little short piece that I made. I had to print a few smaller pieces to get it a little bit higher after my first run. But anyways, so yeah, I elevated the height of those, but you may also notice that I have changed the way the tracks mount to them, and that's because Originally they used these little plastic clips, which as you can see has a good amount of flex to them. So I made my own mounts using some wood pieces. And I essentially made a solid square platform for each trestle pier. And the tracks are just screwed down straight to that. And there's pretty much no flex now. There's a little bit in the middle of the track, but I mean, what can you do? The only other mod that I did to these is I have one single pier right here that I cut in half because it was having clearance issues with this yard track right here. I just couldn't get it to clear any other way. Obviously, the only way would be to move the line more this way, but I couldn't because I needed a little bit of space between the yard track and here. So it took a little bit of figuring out to get this in the perfect spot, and that's one compromise that I had to make. And last thing with these trestles is they're just screwed in with some long machine screws into my table, and it's pretty solid. So I think that's everything to cover of the recent work that I've done since the last update. The next few things I'm going to be working on is mainly wiring. I still got to make a switch panel down here next to my transformer and stuff. I've started to wire some things, but I need to make a panel before I can really move on further. Then I can add more accessories as I'll be able to put the switches in. Then I can go on to doing ground cover, trees, and eventually ballast, and then some buildings. It looks pretty ugly right now with all this scribble mess all over the place, and patchwork, and again all the little pinholes, but like I said, once all the scenery's done, it'll look nice and pretty. So I think that's all to cover for this layout update and all the progress that I've made. If you enjoyed this video and like what you see, I encourage you to leave a like, and there's more updates and videos on this layout to come, so if you're interested in that, subscribe and stay tuned. And to close out, I'll run these 2 trains around. Yes, I can run 2 trains at once now. So I'll let you enjoy watching some trains, and I want to thank you for watching, and have a nice day.